No clickbait. When people talk about Hunter, they're talking about you. Fair fights are for losers, and you've already sprung your trap. A quick withering blade, a follow-up shot with icebreaker. Boom goes the enemy. Another group, the same quick combo. It's a simple trick, but it keeps working. Any champion, all you need is to freeze them, and you have more than enough time to line up the shot. Be a sniper, the rat hiding in the back, the Overwatch protecting your team before they know they're in danger. Here's the quick build. Prismatic Hunter with Mask of Fealty. Flexible Kinetic, I prefer Liturgy with Slideways Chill Clip. Icebreaker, a DPS heavy. I've been using Edge Transit with Envious Bait and Switch. Silence and Squall for your super. Gambler's Dodge, Triple Jump, Withering Blade, Dusk Field, or Swarm Grenade. Aspects are Winter Shroud and Stylish Executioner. Fragments are Command, Ruin, Dawn, Protection, Purpose. Here's a screenshot of the armor and artifact mods you'll be using. And for a longer breakdown, stick around. Okay, so this is going to be a combination video of a few different things. A build video, a substitute build not involving Icebreaker filling a similar niche, and a couple of ways to build with Icebreaker. Here's where you can skip to for each of these. So, Mask of Fealty on Prismatic Hunter. Mask of Fealty is the new exotic on Hunter, allowing you to freeze enemies in a single melee because it forms a crystal beneath them. By doing this, it provides you an immediate stun on overloads and unstops, and with Prismatic gives you Radiant, allowing you to punch through anti-barrier shields with Icebreaker. This means every melee you hit will deal with every champion in the game, and is also an immediate ignite to detonate a spawn. Withering Blade not only regenerates itself, but also provides you with a faster cooldown on your dodge because of Winter Shroud. You don't need to get close to spawns either, and can sit on a ledge sniping, while still being helpful to your team. Transcendence changes your grenade, but not your melee, giving you access to faster charging, easier freezes during it. You might ask, why not just hit headshots instead of focusing on freezes? Well, first, my aim sucks. But secondly, and more importantly, there are a couple of factors making the freeze a better option. For instance, if the shot doesn't kill despite hitting the head, you don't get the ignition. Or if the shot hits a shield, you also don't get the ignition. Finally, by meleeing, you also give yourself Radiant, which means your shot will do more damage and guarantee the ignite. Shooting enemies afflicted with slow or freeze with Icebreaker also provides you with a high rate of refunded ammo. Shooting mini-bosses or champions and then not killing them or killing them with a different weapon will give you chunks of ammo back. So, you can effectively use Icebreaker as a primary weapon. You can still kill the champion, and that's fine, and you often do, but you won't get the full ammo refund if you do so with Icebreaker. If your teammates are already shooting, just take the enemy low and let your teammates give you a free ammo drop while focusing on other targets. With this build, you are playing a mobile support fire sniper who sits in the back and is still effective up close. Getting in closer, you have excellent access to freezes and can drop an ignite on any targets with ease. Doing so and getting a kill will immediately take you invis, allowing you to reposition and start the process over again. Because of these factors and having a flexible DPS ad clear sniper with good ease of use, and satisfying explosions, you can save your heavy and kinetic slot for covering whatever you need. Our primary goal here is to have tools providing additional utility to teammates or allowing us to get Transcendence quicker, so we can spam even more melees to then cause even more ignites. Because you have what is an effectively infinite ammo sniper rifle as long as you manage it, you can run double special. I've chosen Liturgy here, but Ignition Code or the new Stasis Sidearm Tanasha's Mastery or the new Glaive Rake Angle could work. The main goal for this slot is to provide you with a utility you can use in multiple situations. You could run double sniper rifle with critical anomaly, but the limitation of choke clip on a slower firing sniper rifle will be somewhat awkward. For your heavy, I would recommend a burst DPS weapon in Arc, Solar, or Void, to better enable Transcendence. I've been running Edge Transit, but you could run alternatives. Because Icebreaker or your melee cover most situations, you want a tool to deal with targets you're forced to do sustained damage on. You can swap Facet of Command for Devotion or swap Duskfield Grenade for a light grenade of your choice to build Transcendence faster. You can swap out Mask of Fealty for an Inmost Cloak if you want to have better access to ability regen, but you will lose the power to freeze in a single melee. Where is this build bad? This build is flexible. It has a variety of tools to handle multiple situations, due to its ability to deal with every champion regardless of type. A single melee into Icebreaker will stun or break shields. It can stay out of trouble by killing any frozen enemy, and can create a frozen enemy with ease. It is weaker when it runs out of melee, so it's important to keep building Transcendence or to keep closer to enemies to get a new melee off Gambler's Dodge. It doesn't do well when faced with chip damage because the build lacks ways to sustain outside orb pickups and invisibility. However, invisibility is usually enough to get health back and start your loop all over again if you get low. Mid to melee range isn't an issue as long as you can freeze and shoot the enemy, immediately setting off the free ignition. What are the objectives of the build? To use Icebreaker as much as possible. You want to chain a melee into an Icebreaker shot. This causes the ignition and can put you directly into stealth. The damage on this is excellent, even when under light. You want to avoid using Icebreaker for the finishing blow on yellow bar targets if you can get away with it, because you will get good ammo refunds off these enemies if you do. You want to use your abilities to get Transcendence faster so you can freeze more enemies and then ignite more enemies. Your main competition is going to be your teammates. This is because when you freeze enemies, especially in an Onslaught or GMs, it feels like you've placed a "please shoot these before I do" beacon on them. So it's advantageous to have control over when you freeze and kill enemies. As for a non-Icebreaker build, you can run a perfect 5th caster Ergo Sum instead. It does a good amount of damage and pumps out ignitions, which even pre-buff does good single target damage and will only be better after the ignition bug is fixed. This is essentially a more flexible, more Transcendence-oriented build. It plays into a short to mid-range skirmisher fantasy while still using many of the playstyle aspects of the Icebreaker build. I like running a Galanor Sword Arachne class item to have my super faster, because perfect 5th caster gives you crazy amounts of light energy. Here's the build on screen, and it'll be in the description as well. It leans more into champion and boss damage and wants you to be a more aggressive rat. Because you'll be close to mid-range with this build, you'll prefer spamming melees for adds, using your caster sword for beefier targets and groups. This build has Transcendence up near constantly courtesy of your caster frame damage, alongside the excess of slows and freezes you'll be dishing out. You will be swapping to and off your sword in order to use it effectively, tossing out melees, dodging, and swapping back. It's a little similar to Tank Hunter, except with a stealthier playstyle. I used this build a lot last season, and I'm going to use it this season as well, for the reason that it is ammo efficient and effective at slipping in and out of combat. The super is good for putting enemies into beneficial positions, and Galanor refunds almost half your super in any content where it's hitting enemies. It's good at functioning in high-intensity situations because of all this, and it can be more or less tanky based on what you need. It's not a downgrade, and I would consider it a viable alternative to the Icebreaker build. With that, let's talk about how to build with Icebreaker. What I wanted to make with this Icebreaker build was to feature the weapon as strongly as possible, allowing you to use it as the star of the show. So let's go over what Icebreaker incentivizes and how you can use this to make different builds with other characters or other exotics. Icebreaker incentivizes two things: precision kills and shooting frozen enemies. These both cause an ignition. Non-precision kills and crystal shatters with Icebreaker cause a solar explosion, but not an ignition. So we want to freeze and shoot enemies, because this will trigger an ignition regardless of whether or not they have a shield or do not die to the initial headshot. Also, freezing them makes it a lot easier to shoot them in the head. How do we build around this? We focus on methods to spam freeze. I'd like to separate these into passive and active methods. As an example, Bleak Watcher and Ice Flare Bolts would be more of a passive method of freezing because they provide freezes and are effective, but you might want to immediately freeze something. I prefer active methods of freezing to passive ones because it lets you combo the ignite easier and gives you better control over where you target. By immediately freezing, you can then follow up with an immediate icebreaker shot. Of course, this is not the only possible option. You can fight and kill enemies by allowing them to come to you, freezing them along the way. But a lot of activities directly incentivize against this, making it advantageous to camp and immediately kill spawns. Onslaught being an obvious example, but also newer activities with enemy-dense spawns. Also, it's easier to kill a spawn than to freeze them slower and have an ally kill them. You also want consistent access to freeze and to avoid too many ice crystals or glacier grenades because it can make it more difficult to land good shots on frozen targets. Cold snaps are good, making Osmiomancy an obvious potential choice. But Stasis Supers and Sustain can be on the rougher side, so you would prefer Prismatic for it. The new Rhymecoat Raiment would be effective in holding down areas, but feels best to me on pure Stasis, which puts your super in question. On the other hand, Prismatic's Transcendence replaces your grenade, which makes it more difficult to consistently freeze enemies. I want to emphasize these are good alternatives and work well. I would recommend them if you don't have a hunter or want to set up a sniping fortress. Titan is a little rougher because it sets up and tends to rely on crystals, and these only make a solar explosion rather than a full ignition. You could run glaciers and rely on the shadow damage even more, but it feels a little less like using Icebreaker to kill enemies and more the glaciers doing the job. I wanted to make a build focusing on using Icebreaker as much as possible. I think that's about it. Sorry I didn't do Balladors, but the changes to Balladors weren't what I was expecting, so I had to revise my plan for it. It's also been a little frustrating to make it work consistently because it's heavily team focused to get it to function. Icebreaker sucked me in and I wanted to make a build specifically catering to it. Thank you for watching. If this video was helpful to you, please consider liking and subscribing for more content. Thanks, and have a good one.